Excellent. Thank you very much. Right. Well, good evening, everybody. Here we are. It's a Thursday, the 13th of June, a day that will always live in my memory because it is one of my daughter's birthdays. So makes it sound like they're really young. I've got children, but she's 32. So it all seems a bit weird, really, when you call them a child. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Fortunately, if you're indoors, it might be a little bit chilly because it's flipping freezing where I am. And I'm delighted that tonight we have Bobby, who is going to blow your socks off about setting up a practice. No pressure on that for you there. So welcome, Bobby. So I'm looking forward to tonight. I've known you, met you a couple of times, all very interesting. You've done these quite a few times now, I'd have thought, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done a few, but hopefully they get better each time.
Yeah.
You've set the bar very high now, though, so we've got to make sure we perform now.
Yeah, I'm really seriously hoping you're not rubbish. No, seriously. I've seen you speak and I know it will be really engaging. I think it's fascinating because there's no doubt about it. Setting up a squat, you know, Frank Taylor Associates, we make our money from selling dental practices, but there's no doubt about it. I would say in the last 3 years or so, especially since COVID, the amount of interest in setting up a squat and trying to do it yourself. And my hope, Bobby, is what tonight you'll be able to do is inspire people, because we, you know, for probably every 100 people that talk to us about a squat, I bet you, I would think less than 10% actually bother even sending out any business plans to us. We sort of say, you know, give us a rough idea, and then the number that go from that becomes even smaller. And I think you're going to demystify it and make it more obvious, really. So I'm brilliant. I can see people coming in, always conscious that we don't want to penalise the punctual. So I am going to disappear, and I'm going to say over to you, Bobby. So I will mute myself. Any issues, give us a shout. And I'm looking forward to this. Oh, by the way, questions, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do those at the end because Bobby says there is no doubt going to be loads of questions that come up during the whole thing. So we're going to give you plenty of time to ask those questions, but you can pop those in the Q&A box and we will get through them at the end. Thanks very much. Cheers, Bobby. Over to you, man.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, everybody, so thank you. And as Chris said, I'm going to be sharing my journey of setting up my practice. So I'll just let you know, some of you might know me, some of you won't. So I'm the principal dentist of a squat practice in a place called Leamington Spa in the Midlands. And aside from that, I also help dentists and mentor them who are setting up their own practices at the moment, pretty much all over the country, and teaching and sharing my whole journey and all of the mistakes so they don't have to make the same ones. So I'll just share these little pictures here of exactly where we started. So this was around about 2 years ago now. We opened 18 months ago, and this was our original building. And this was the back end of the building. So with this particular squat, we had to do a big extension. And as you can see, it was quite a messy job. And I'll show you what we managed to turn this into. So you can see here, this is our beautiful practice. It looks nicer in the evening, in the winter than it does during the day. But this is our lounge and our front entrance. So you can see quite a big difference to the property that we've made there. So when I look back over my squat journey, I had a good think about what are all the stages that you really need to think about and nail when you're starting out in practice. And I could broadly split it into these 5 categories. The first one is strategic planning, and you have to have a plan when you're going to be thinking about setting up a practice. If you don't have a plan, you will plan to fail. And that's where you should focus a lot of your time in the beginning of the journey. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about that. The second thing is finding a great location, design and planning and building your actual premises. And that's very, very important for a number of different reasons. And it's an area that dentists sometimes struggle with because they're not used to dealing with doing big building work jobs. And it can get very confusing about all the different regulations and all the permissions, etc., that are needed. And there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So I'll try and clarify that as we go through this presentation. The third thing is marketing. And marketing is absolutely huge and absolutely essential. If you want a successful squat practice, you have to focus a huge amount of your research and building your knowledge base in marketing. And that doesn't just go for your practice, that goes for you yourself as well. And I'll share some more about that later on. The fourth stage in setting up a really successful squat practice is being able to build a really, really good quality team. And that is, I would say, the most difficult thing that everybody finds when setting up a practice. And I'll share a little bit about how we've done what we've done as we go through the presentation. And the final thing that I would put down to us being really successful so far is being able to create a 5-star patient journey. That is essential because, as many of us are aware, at the moment, building a dental practice is becoming a lot more of an experience and a service more so than the actual dentistry that we provide. So you have to put a lot of thought into that. So when you're thinking about starting out in practice, the first thing that you have to rewind to and have a really, really good think about is start with why. So this is a concept by somebody called Simon Sinek. So he's quite a famous person and he's got his great book and there's a great TED talk on YouTube. And some of you might have already read this or heard about it, but everything that we do, we have to start with why. Why do we want to go down this journey? Why do we want to set a practice up? Because if you do not understand why you want to do what you want to do, you won't know how to get there. And for me, I'll share exactly my why. So I was working as an associate for around about 7 or 8 years, very busy practice, mixed practice, NHS private. I got very, very, very bored in that practice. And eventually the practice got sold to a corporate practice. And I did not like the way things were headed. I did not like having no control over my own future. So at that point, I had to make a decision to set up your own practice, go into private practice, go into a niche. But for me, ultimately, I had always had an interest in business, and I really, really wanted to create my own environment. You know, that's what excited me. I wanted to serve my local population. I wanted to build a legacy for myself, for my family, for my future, and I wanted to create an asset as an investment. So as the years go on, you know, I've got something that I can sell financially as and when the time is right. And I wouldn't be able to do that as an associate. So my why was really, really strong, but it's really, really important that you understand this right from the beginning, because if you don't, going into practice ownership might not be the right decision for you. And setting up a squat practice might not be the right decision for you, because setting up a squat practice, the journey can be very, very tough and it can be very lonely. And it is hard work, no matter what anybody says. And it is extremely fulfilling and extremely rewarding, but you have to have the expectation that your why is so strong enough to support you through the difficult days. Because there will be days where you just feel like giving up and you feel like rubbish, things haven't gone quite right, you've spent more money than you needed to, etc. Yeah, you will come across countless things. But the thing that gets you through all of those hard days is coming back to your why and remembering exactly why you're doing what you want to do. And then understanding your why will help you in the next phase. So dentists commonly ask, when I'm starting up a squat practice, exactly where do I start? What do I need to do first? And the first thing you need to do is to learn how to build a business plan. And you need a business plan for lots of different reasons. A business plan is essentially a blueprint for your business, what you want to build, and then how you're going to build that. And the other important reason of having a business plan is because you will not be able to obtain finance if you need finance from a bank without having a good business plan. And there's lots of different people that can help you around this. So accountants, brokers, and you just have to go out and find, you know, the right people to get you through it. And when you're first thinking about setting up in practice and building your business plan, the first thing you have to think about is, okay, I know I want to set my practice up and this is what I want to do, but what are my goals in business? So you've got to go deeper than I just want to set a practice up because I'm grossing really well as an associate and I think I can do this on my own. That will only take you so far. You know, what's a really good idea is to sit down and think, what are my actual goals? What are my objectives? I want to start out in business. Where do I want to be in the next 3 years? And then how am I going to get there? And some examples of goals that you can start to think about are, you know, what would I like my turnover to be? Yeah, how much money would I like my practice to bring in? How much volume of treatment would I like to be doing? Do I want to be seeing thousands of patients? Do I want to be seeing hundreds of patients, but doing a lot higher value work on those patients? How many surgeries do you think you would need in your practice? How much profit would you like to make? How many clinical hours would you like to work? You know, it's your practice. You get to make the decision now. Do you want it to be associate-led or would you like it to be principal-led? You know, both of those will have completely different business strategies, but if you don't know the difference or what you want from the beginning, you won't know how to get there. And then finally, expansion plans. So this is the most exciting bit for the people who are really driven, want multiple practices, multiple sites. Then, you know, how do I get to that from starting at 0? So everything that I've just discussed, you can then start to translate into a business plan. And this is just a summary of the key aspects that you need in a business plan. So a business plan will consist of your mission, your aims, and your goals over the 3-year period. Your location, what type of practice you want to build, the demographics, who do you want in your practice, who will you need to help you in your practice and that team that you need, how much will it cost me to build this practice, and then how much will it cost me then to run the practice, and then how much money do I think that I would earn back from that practice over the next 3 years. And with the startup cost and the financial forecast, again, I did my own, and it was a very drawn out process, and it took me a hell of a lot of time. But there are very good people out there that can help you do all of that. So some of the key financial considerations when you're starting out in practice, from everything that I'm seeing at the moment, Chris will probably agree with this, the average startup cost for a typical 2 to 3 surgery squat, including your equipment, is anywhere in the region between £200,000 to £350,000 at the moment. Me personally, when I set my practice up, we were at £270,000 to build a free surgery practice, plus all the equipment within that. Banks at the moment are actively lending for squat practices. So it's a very common question. Will I get finance? How can I get finance? And the answer is finance is available. There are people out there, there are banks, financial companies that will give you money to open up your squat practice on the basis of a good business plan. And then the final point I would say about as a financial consideration is that when you're taking out your finance, you have to account for cash flow. And this is something that dentists can sometimes forget, is that I need this amount of money to start my practice and set my practice up. But then what happens when you open your doors? When you open your doors, for the first 3 to 6 months, your cash flow will be low and your outgoings will be high. And ultimately, we're in a race at that point to reverse that trend. But you have to make sure that there's enough of a buffer there to see you through that period if it takes you a little bit longer than what you projected. And there's different ways of doing that. You can either maintain an associate position while you're building your practice, which is a very sensible thing, and that's what I did for the first 3 months when I was setting up my practice. Or you can account for it in your loan and go all in. So you know that you've got a certain amount of buffer and leeway. So the second thing that I wanted to talk about is location, design, and planning of your practice. And for me, this is a very, very big thing. So when I look back to the building that we got to set my squat practice up in, I wanted something that was local to me. I've got a young family. I don't want to be moving all over the country. But ultimately, I wanted something that was very, very visible, and to my local community, to the population that we want to serve. So we obtained a corner unit on a main road opposite a supermarket, but unfortunately also opposite another dental practice. But that hasn't made any difference, thank God, because we're very, very different styles of practices. And what I would say is that when you're setting out in practice and you're looking at your location, you want to make sure that you are as visible as possible to the type of patients that you want inside your practice, however that looks. So if you're hidden away, then you can still make your practice successful, but it means that you will have to spend a lot more money on marketing, in different aspects, digital marketing, traditional marketing. And if you have a great location with great footfall, great visibility, it means that you have to spend less on your marketing. And when it comes to patients coming into your practice, even if they know that you're there, they might not come in straight away. But just give you an example from our practice, patients have multiple touch points where they will see you. And it takes, 3, 4, 5 different touch points before they might interact with your business. So commonly what happens with our practices is that patients come in and I ask them, okay, how did you hear about us? Well, we drive past you every single day. We've seen you being built. And but then I saw your ad on Facebook, and that spurred me then to come in. So it's a combination of everything, but ultimately you want to be as visible as possible. So once you've found your premises, you have 2 options. That can either be a freehold or a leasehold, and both of those have got pros and cons, but I won't go too much into the details of that. What happens then once you've got your building? Because this is another very, very common question. What planning permissions do I need, and what's the process then to get my practice built? So generally, as a rule, if your building has Class E permission, you don't need any change of use, and you can generally crack on with building your practice once it's been designed appropriately. If it doesn't have a Class E use, then you need to obtain planning permission for a change of use to convert that building into a Class E before you can build your dental practice. And then once you know you have a Class E and you can build your dental practice in that building, you need to obtain detailed design drawings for your building control and your builders to be able to build your building. Once you have those and that's passed off by your building control, you can then start your building work. So who do you use to do all of this? Because there's lots of different people out there that offer all these different types of services. You could go to architects, special dental equipment companies, big build teams who specialize in dental builds. And one of the most common questions I get asked is who's the best? Who's the best person to use? And there is no one right answer to that. So with our practice, I used architects, and the reason for that was because we needed to do a double-story extension. And our planning permission process was a little bit more extensive than if you just had an empty shell. But there are dental equipment companies who offer turnkey services who will do everything for you. And they might charge a slight premium for that. But you have to weigh up yourself. How involved do you want to be in the process of starting up your practice? Are you happy to carry on working as an associate and give all the headache to somebody else and they manage it and build it for you and you know that they're good and they crack on? Or do you want to be more involved? Do you want to learn that side of how to build a practice? And one thing I would say that I've seen is with architects, they are independent from most dental equipment companies. So they design buildings in a slightly different way than equipment companies. But ultimately, that's a decision for you to make. But there is no right or wrong. The next thing that I want to talk about is marketing and personal branding. So there's some pictures there of our practice and our branding. That's Avenue Dental. And marketing and personal branding is absolutely crucial when you're starting out in practice. And it is something that I wish I knew a hell of a lot more about when I first opened my practice. So I've been on a journey and learned a hell of a lot about this. And if I had taken the time to do this right at the time before I set my practice up, we would be in an even better position than we are right now. So just to give you an example, this is a very successful dentist who I'm helping at the moment set up a practice, and his practice is limited to smile makeovers and Invisalign, and he derives 100% of his patient base all through social media, no paid marketing whatsoever. And that is a clear example where somebody has fully leveraged the power of social media. And one of the top tips I can give anybody who's starting out in dental practice, whether you want to start now, whether you think you're going to start in a year, in 2 years, is that you have to have a presence on social media. And your personal brand is as important as your practice brand. The better you can represent yourself and build your following, the easier it will be for patients to buy into you, because patients will research you. They will go on Instagram, they will go on Facebook, they will look at what you are doing. So I've had patients follow me from previous practices who've come from 50 miles away, who needed high value work, implants, and they found me through Instagram. And don't just think it's only for people that want smile makeovers and things like that. I had an 80-year-old patient ask her daughter to find me because she wanted to come back to have some implant work, and her daughter messaged me through Instagram. She found me, and they are now both patients in the practice and the whole family. So do not underestimate it. And ultimately, the better you get at that, again, the less you have to spend on marketing. So, what is marketing? There is a chap in America called Seth Godin, and he's got some brilliant books about marketing. And, he describes it as marketing is the generous act of helping someone solve a problem, their problem. So in simple terms, our patients have a problem and we solve their problem. But how do we do that? So when you're setting up your practice, what you really need to do is define your unique selling point. If I'm a patient, and I ask this to all the dentists that I work with, I've got a choice now of 5 practices, all within a 4 or 5 mile radius. Why would I come to your practice over the other ones? And if you haven't thought about that question, then how do you expect patients to come to your practice? So take some time and think about this. What sets your practice apart from all the other practices in your area? Just to give you an example, our practice, we were the 3rd squat to set up in a year within around about a 7 mile radius, and the last one. So, I thought this was going to be very difficult for us, and it's very competitive. But what we really had to do was dig deep into why are we better? Why are we different from these other practices? What do we do? What service do we provide that other people aren't providing? And that is why our patients come to us. And then that leads into what is our story? What's the story of our practice? What is the why of our practice? And then how do we get that across through all of our marketing mechanisms to allow patients to come to us because we stand out? And, for us in our practice, we have a very unique practice. We have a locked door service. Patients, there is no reception. So patients come in, it's a very personal service. Every new patient gets an hour. Every patient is scanned. Every patient gets let into a beautiful patient lounge. Practice does not look like a dental practice. It does not feel like a dental practice. It does not smell like a dental practice. The only time patients realize it's a dental practice is when they walk into the surgery. And the service that we provide and the way we care and look after our patients, that is what sets us apart. That is why we're different. And that is what our patients tell other patients. But it can be anything, but you just need to know exactly what it is and build that for your practice. So a really useful tip when you're thinking about building your business plan is to look at creating avatars. So a lot of you will have seen this film, one of the most famous films in the world. And an avatar is essentially your ideal patient. So who do I want in my practice? Who is this ideal patient? So, for example, is it an Invisalign patient? Is it an implant patient? If they're an Invisalign patient, okay, how old are they? What's their disposable income? Where do they work? What do they do? What's their family situation? Where do they hang out? Once you've created these avatars of the ideal patients that you want in your practice, that's how then you can laser target your marketing towards these people to bring them into your practice. Where a lot of practices go wrong is they sign up with marketing agencies who have broad campaigns, but they don't really understand exactly who they want in their practice. And then they end up falling out because they say, well, the marketing's not working, this or that. And ultimately, it all comes down to this. It's having that real focus on exactly who you want in your practice. And when it comes to marketing, broadly speaking, you're going to have two options. So traditional marketing, digital marketing. Traditional marketing is everything like newspaper, magazines, leaflets. And then we have digital marketing. And digital marketing can be broadly split up into two categories. And that's organic and that's paid marketing. So paid marketing is things like Facebook ads, Google pay-per-click. And organic is things like SEO, raising your rankings on Google, and having a social media presence. So Instagram, Facebook, etc., TikTok, whatever it is. So one thing I would say is what a lot of dentists say is that they think that it's very expensive to do marketing, especially digital marketing, because it costs me thousands of pounds and I'm not prepared to do that when I'm starting out my practice. And what you really need to think about is that marketing is an investment in your practice. So for every pound that you spend on paid marketing, you should be expecting a certain amount of money back in profit off the back of that marketing. So if I said to 10 dentists, okay, we spend £4,000 a month on paid marketing, the reaction from 8 out of 10 of those would be, wow, that's a huge amount of money. But if that £4,000 on marketing is generating you £50,000 to £60,000 worth of treatment, that is not expensive whatsoever. And then you think, well, actually, I should be spending more because then I can fill my other surgeries. So it's just a different way to look at marketing. But the key, as I said, is having laser focus on exactly who you want in your practice, and then making sure you're working with the right agency who understand that. But ultimately, you'll only know if it's the right agency if you spend the time learning about it yourself, because ultimately it is your business, it's your responsibility. So you're responsible for picking that agency, but then you need to have an understanding so you know exactly what is going on and where your money is being spent, and then the returns that you're getting off the back of that. And if you're not getting those returns, then why? And then at least you know. So as I said, marketing your practice well will be the one of the biggest determinants of your success. And it all comes down to this: how well do you stand out in a crowded market? There are lots of new spots opening all over the country, and take a deep dive into how you think that you're going to stand out in that market. So one of the big things with setting up a practice, one of the things that dentists struggle with the most is recruitment and building a team. And I will tell you from my own experience, it has been the hardest thing for me, without a doubt. Is it impossible? No. But does it take a lot of work? Yes, it does. It takes work, it takes time, it takes investment. And ultimately, the more you put into this, the more you will get back. The more you put into your team and building them up to be the people that they can be, again, the more you will get back in terms of productivity and what you achieve in your practice. But it is hands down one of the most important aspects of building your practice. Your practice will only ever be as successful as the people that work in it. It is not about you. Often dentists get caught up thinking that I'm the dentist, I'm the boss, I own the practice, people are coming to see me. Well, actually, no. Patients, you're not the first person to speak to a patient. It's actually your team. So, yeah, they're actually more important than you are. We just do the dentistry, but that team around us are what makes the practice run and make the practice work. So when you're starting out in practice, you're going to think lots of different questions. Who do I need? When do I need them? How many people do I need? How much do I pay them? Where do I find them from? Who's going to do my contracts? What if they don't perform well? how do I fire them? You might never fired anybody before, and you might struggle to have a difficult conversation. So I'll go through a few of these just to give some examples. So one of the things I would say is when you're starting out in practice, it's really, really common that the most expensive bill every single month when you're first starting out is going to be your wage bill. So you might have the thought that if I take on less staff, if I have a smaller team initially, then I am saving on my costs until the business starts to get bigger and bigger. But one thing I would say is that you cannot run your business too lean. What I would suggest is that you actually build your team for where you expect your practice to be 6 months ahead of time. Having more people allows you to get more done in your practice. So when you're setting up in practice and starting a squat, there are 10 million different things that your team can be doing, even if they're not seeing patients. Things like networking, going out to local businesses, creating connections, doing marketing for you, doing consultations, in-house consultations, video consultations, phone. There are so many things that your team could be doing to be productive. So it's a false economy to keep your team too small and too lean, because what will often happen is that team will end up burning out, because you'll probably find that you get bigger quicker than what you expected. And then when you start recruiting, it then starts a process of another 2 to 3 months for you to then find that right person, integrate them. But then by that time, the rest of your team is absolutely knackered. And I've learned that from, when I started up, because I did exactly that. And it was a mistake. So when you're looking for a team, and the 3 things that I look for in people are they capable, are they efficient, and are they motivated? And if they're capable or not, it's essentially, is it the right or the wrong person for the role? If it's an efficiency problem, it's a training issue, because they might not have been trained appropriately to be efficient. And if it's a motivation issue, generally that is to do with the culture in your practice. And culture in your practice, your business culture, is absolutely essential. And it's something that a lot of dentists don't think about. What do you want the culture of your business to be? How well do you want to retain your staff? And one thing I would say is that the more time you can spend learning about how to develop a great culture in your business, it will resolve so much of your headache and so many problems, because your team will just be happy and they will just come in and do the work that they need to do. But a lot of that stems from you. You're the leader. You have to set that culture in your practice, and then you have to spend time nurturing that and building your team. And there's lots and lots of different things you can do around that, but we don't have time to go into that today. But all I would say is spend some time learning about how to build a great business culture. And a couple of rules that I stand by is that recruitment should be constant. You always want to be looking for the best talent, always planning ahead. Where's my business going to be in 6 months from now? Who will I need at that point? And I should start putting that in place now. Second rule, hire slow, fire fast, hands down. Firing somebody for the first time is always an experience, but it's something that you have to get used to. Being an owner of a practice, as associates, one of the things we're not taught is how to have difficult conversations. And the quicker you can get to grips with that and how to manage that, the easier your life will be. And it gets easier as you go along. But if somebody's not the right fit, you do not want them in your business for a long period of time because you were too scared to have that conversation. And the final tip would be get professional advice on your contracts, no matter what. So there are all sorts of templates out there that people can use. But in my experience, and I learned this the hard way when I very first set up my practice, just using templates, is that the templates are not always correct. They're not always in your favor, and they don't always need to have been set up like that. And that can cause you a lot of stress and a lot of headache. So there are lawyers, there are HR experts, but all I would say is that make sure you do get professional advice on your contracts when you're starting out in your business. So ultimately, we are the owner of the business, not the operator. And you can only scale your business and grow your business once you start to implement that mindset. So that means that we should, as business owners, not be in a surgery 6 days a week. You have to take time out to understand your business, learn your business, and build your team underneath you, so then you can then grow your business. But you can only grow your business once you implement that and implement that mindset. And one of the final things I want to finish on is, what is the biggest factor that's contributed most to our success in our practice? And there's a little video here I'll just play of our practice. Apologies, it does have music, but you might not be able to hear it. So that's just a little marketing reel that we had made, just giving a highlight of what it's like in our practice. And that's one of our real patients. And he was happy to come in. We don't pay them anything. We do lots of this with lots of our patients. And we don't incentivize them, but we send them thank yous and gifts afterwards. But it is all around this. And that is creating a 5-star patient journey and experience. So that can come in many, many different forms of how you do that. But you have to spend a lot of time thinking about a 5-star patient journey and experience. What do you want that journey to look like? Take a whiteboard and map it out from beginning to end. Patient inquires, interested in our practice, all the way to the end of treatment. What's the end of treatment protocol? And all the tiny little details that come in between that. And we are now the second highest rated practice on Google, within a year of being open in our local town. These numbers have climbed now. That's an old picture. But our Google reviews, by providing that 5-star service, have been absolutely massive for us growing our business, because patients jump on and they don't just leave one-line sentences. They are leaving paragraphs about their experience in the practice. And that just speaks for itself about the journey that you create. And that is really powerful for lots of different reasons, SEO, but patients do read these without a doubt. And a lot of our patients come just by reading our reviews, and your reviews were the best or the most detailed, and that's why we've come. So do not underestimate that. Really, really think hard about what your 5-star patient journey looks like. So that's everything. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I've got my contact details on here. If anybody's got any questions or they want to reach out to me afterwards, that's no problem whatsoever. And then one final thing I just wanted to mention is that on Saturday, the 13th of July, I'm hosting a one-day event, all based around starting a successful squat. So going through all these key areas, but in a lot more detail over a whole day. It's £149 for the day, but as a thank you for anybody that's watched this webinar or come through FTA, you can come free of charge if you just reach out to me. That's no problem whatsoever. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Bobby. That was brilliant. I loved it. I don't know. I hope everyone else did. Guys, if you've got any questions, pop them in the Q&A box and Bobby will answer them. Or if not, he'll find out an answer for you. For me, whilst you might be thinking of questions, I sort of loved what you were saying, and I put it down. I wrote down 3 sort of key things for me, really. That one is plan. plan what you're going to do it, because there's going to be enough things that come up unforeseen. So the more you can plan, then you're not completely running bonkers, I'd imagine. Yeah. Another thing that came through so strong, Bobby, was use advisors. Use people, seek advice. Don't sort of, it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big thing. So, I speak to a lot of dentists now, and a lot of them hesitate about having to get professional advice because they don't want to pay for it. But it is the wrong way to view it. It's the wrong mindset, because if that professional piece of advice saves you headache, litigation, or money in the long run, why would you not? It does not make sense.
No, no. Anyone can get anything cheap, can't they? As you say,
Yeah.
I'm a great believer. I think paying for professional advice makes the difference, because it's always about when we obviously sell and dental practice, and I say to people, it's not so much what's in those documents, it's what's not in the documents, because if you don't know, you just don't know. It's not that you just don't know that should be there. You don't know how you should deal with someone. You don't know what you should do with planning. I think that was a great one, because I think you're right. I think some people try to penny pinch. If you're, what was it? I think your cost was between 275. Did you say
Yeah,
275?
270,
And,
yeah.
and I agree with you. I think we would sort of say to people it's around about between 250 and 350, something like that. And when you look at it and you think, well, if I'm going to spend all that money, why not spend 10 grand on getting some decent advice that actually is going to maybe save me money. What was interesting, I can endorse this, is with Bobby was saying that banks are happy to lend. There's one bank I know of who basically will do 300,000 unsecured for you as a startup. You have to put a contribution in, but they will finance. Whereas probably, would you say 5 years ago, Bobby, they weren't really interested in squats? They were like a dirty word. Though, if you go for the old X Factor, there'd have been a big cross, red cross, as soon as you mentioned the S word. They'd have gone, no, get out my doors, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I had was ask. I love the fact of, you ask people, ask your staff, ask your friends, ask your advisors, ask your patients, because you'll be surprised at what comes back. There was so many brilliant stuff. I'm an ex-banker, so I cannot tell you how much I love the fact that you said you need to think about cash flow.
Oh, this comes up so much. So many dentists forget that they need money to run the business. And it's such an oversight, but it's something that could kill you and destroy your business. I mean, I heard a story recently speaking with a different broker, and dentist opened a practice around about 8 months in, and they were knocking on his door asking for finance because they could not afford to pay their wage bill for the next month. And you should not be in that situation. Nobody should be in that situation. But that comes down to poor planning.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, if you don't plan, what's that? I think the phrase is, isn't it? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, or something. I can't remember, something like that. It's brilliant. I've got a couple of questions. Let's see what they've got. Here we go. Right, here we go. First question from Nihad here is, what percentage of turnover is reasonable to spend on marketing, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't look at it as a percentage of turnover. So marketing, especially when you're starting a squat practice, you have to go through a trial and error phase when you're first setting up your campaigns. So it's very, very area specific. So depending on where you are, what the competition is like, and what type of treatments that you're targeting, the marketing spend will vary massively. But typically, I'll be honest, we spend around about, at the moment, about £3,000. And we're turning over, about 50 grand a month in one room. So that's what works for us, but it's different in different areas. For example, if you're in London,
And not a huge number, is it, really, when you think about it as a percentage of your turnover? And I presume you, when you're saying about depends on what you're trying to attract as a patient, do you mean depending on the type, age, demographic type of treatment, you would spend different money because you might have to do like a paper mailing or something, as SEO or something? Is that almost like trying to identify where your target market goes to?
Yeah, exactly that. typically with bigger ticket items, implants, Invisalign, because Invisalign, so heavily marketed, you're going to end up paying a lot more on your marketing spend, because everybody is bidding on the same keywords essentially.
Right.
But there are certain ways around that, some very clever marketing strategies, go thinking outside the box, it's just simple things, like using smile makeovers instead of Invisalign, and little things like that. But like I said, it's very, very area and treatment specific.
Right. I remember there's a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk that you may or may not have
Yeah,
heard of.
Gary V.
And what he says, which is so good, he said, you go where the eyeballs are. It's as simple as that. He said, if you want to market, go where the eyeballs, go where people are looking, watching, being, and that's where you spend your money. Brilliant, thank you. Next question from Micaiah, I think this is. Hi, Bobby, thanks for your great presentation. See, you did it. I told you were going to be great. Regarding recruitment, how do you know how much to pay a dental nurse receptionist per hour? And then the next one is, do you have a company pension for your employees? Now, I don't know what that means in addition to workplace pensions, but
okay, so yeah, I mean, workplace pensions, yes, we do have workplace pensions for our employees. With regard to recruitment, that's a very interesting one in terms of what you pay your team. So as a rule of thumb, have a look at what people are paying in your local area. So you can go on Indeed and see what roles are advertised and what your average rates are. And for me, it's a simple case of you just pay them more. And even better if you have people that you already know. So, half my team is team members that I already knew, already could perform. And interestingly, one of them actually took a pay cut to come and work here because she was so unhappy, with the environment she was in, that she would rather have worked here for a happy life.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not all about money. That's one thing I would say. A big thing when you're recruiting is finding out what makes people happy. And money does not do it for everybody. So yeah, and that's important to think about when it comes to making bonus schemes in your practice as well. Some people will value time off, some people will value money, some people will value a happy working environment. Some people, it's just different for everybody, but you really got to become good at understanding people. Yeah, eventually the people business, we need to understand our team, we need to understand our patients. And that is what makes, successful practice owners, being able to understand people.
So one of the other things you said, which I thought was equally, I'd say I found lots of really good takeaways in this, was, and it sort of ties in with the recruitment thing, in the fact of fire fast. If you've got someone, I always look on it that I think in any business you have ambassadors and you have saboteurs, and the ambassadors are the ones who believe in what you're doing and they promote you, and the saboteurs sort of niggle. They're the people who are always causing problems. They're the ones who are whispering in the ears. And I love when you said fire fast. How did you find that? Because I'm assuming that's something from
So with the saboteurs, the first thing I would say is I have another name for them, and this is what I found with both the ones that I've fired so far, is that what I would call toxic high performers. So they tend to be people who actually perform extremely well at their role, but they are horrific to manage, and can sabotage your business and destroy the morale of everybody else around you. So they tend to fall into that category. And the experience of firing people. So I'll be honest, the first time I had to do it, I did not enjoy it. I was crapping myself. My heart was racing. I did not want to have that conversation. And I put it off for around about 3 weeks longer than I should have.
Wow.
The second time I did it, I had no hesitation.
So you were in.
Yeah, I learned very, very fast. Put it like that.
But I think you're right, though, isn't it? It's a bit. It's like with anything. It's like probably the first time you ever did a large treatment plan for implants. You're probably a little bit hesitant, but then when it's okay, you then think, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. I think it's great. I don't know for whether you've seen it, and I would say to our viewers, have a look at Jack Welch. He used to work GEC, and he had this. He categorised staff into A, B, C's, and D's, and basically C's are the people you're talking about, which are the ones who are really good performers, but just don't get the values of the business. And you've got to make a decision, which is either you retrain them in the hope they'll get the values, or you get rid of them. Yeah, but well done. I've got another question popped in. I can see maybe a couple more. Let's have a look what we got. Here we go. So this is from Jasmine. Hi, Bobby. My husband and I are interested in possibly opening a squat practice in the future. The one-day course in Birmingham on 13th of July, is it just for dentists? I'm a dentist. My husband is not, but he'd like to come as well. Thanks. So I think that was Jasmine saying, couldn't she bring her husband for free?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you could both come. It's not a problem. Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. And then the only other question was Michaela saying thank you. Oh, here we go. Oh, my word, there are more coming in now. Right, Jasmine again. Also, is it hard to get an NHS contract off the NHS for a new squat practice? And what is in the actual process in doing so?
Okay, so I don't actually know the answer to that because I didn't have an NHS contract. We are fully private, and I had no interest in having an NHS contract whatsoever. But I do know somebody who owns lots of practices who goes through the tendering process quite a fair bit, even at the moment. So I can put you in touch with somebody if you want to. Chris, you might have some more experience on that.
I think the answer is we say they're tricky to get. Would you really want one? Depending on what it is, and depends on the type of practice you want to do. There's nothing wrong with having an NHS practice. It just depends where you want to start yourself off with, really. And as for the process, I haven't got a clue. But bit like with Bobby, we know people, but by all means, contact Bobby. Send us an email, and we can put you in contact. We've got another one from someone anonymous. Do you have a recommended company solicitor you use for contracts or when firing redundancy packages so that they are watertight?
Okay, so I use a local HR consultant. So she's local to my area, and I got to know her well through networking meetings. And she did all my contracts for me. And whenever I have any HR queries, I go to her. But there are lots and lots of people that can do that for you. I mean, FCA, you've got your own legal branch, haven't you?
I can throw one in. I mean, we used to own a law firm, but we don't anymore because we sold it to the guys who were our partners, all very amicable. But Sarah Buxton, I got confused because she's actually married. But anyway, Sarah Buxton from Buxton Coates is brilliant HR lawyer. So definitely have a chat with that. It's Buxton Coates. I don't have any interest in them anymore, so I'm not. It's not like I'm earning commission, but she is exceptionally good and really well known in it. So I would definitely go for Buxton Coates. Here we go. This is another one from Tahir. Hi, Bobby. Why are you so wealthy? No. How much net profit can a squat make in the first year and following few years? Next part of the question: is it better to specialise in all-on? I think that might be all on. Don't know what
all on X. Yeah, he means all on. It's all like all on 4 and all on 6 implants.
Okay, thank you. For example, rather than general dentistry or cosmetic dentistry.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, me and Chris were just talking about this before we jumped on. So, I'll tell you, from our practice, we've been open a year and a half now. We're only just putting in our second surgery, but we're at a run rate of turning over $500,000 out of one surgery. And the net profit on that is very high because it's largely driven through me as the main dentist working in the business. So I'm not paying out to associates. So your typical net profit, is going to land somewhere between 20 to 30% once you add in associates, etc. And one thing I would say is that when we opened the practice, it was a heavy emphasis on general dentistry and emergencies to try and fill the books. Soon as I learned a lot more about marketing and targeting what we really wanted to do, which was a big focus on implants, it was crazy. Like the business, the turnover just went boom. So, really when you're setting up a squat, your goal is to turn over as much as quick as possible to get you out of that cash flow deficit. So your best efforts are spent in targeting high value treatments. And that is the quickest way, to get your turnover and your profit up, without a doubt. So yeah, all on X, fantastic. We do full arch implants in this practice. And there is nothing else in dentistry that will earn you as much money as that, without a doubt. So if you do that or provide it, definitely.
Excellent. Excellent. Any more questions, anybody? I know we've got 6 minutes left, so let's milk Bobby for the information and knowledge that he's got. Don't let him get away for free. Come on. There's 6 minutes left. 5 minutes now. Any more questions from anybody at all? Let's have a look. I'll tell you another thing that I thought was quite cool as well. It's funny. We've always done it as valuations. In effect, if you called it a patient lounge as opposed to a waiting room, which I always think is a lovely phrase, because actually you shouldn't be waiting because the dentist should be running on time. I know that's the whole big issue about, NHS dentistry and stuff like that. But I love the phrase that it's probably called patient lounge, isn't it? It's probably you're probably introduced into the patient lounge.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things that patients love about our practice. So we see a lot of anxious patients, a lot of nervous patients, patients that haven't been for a long time. A lot of them just need general dentistry, but a hell of a lot of it, like £2,000 worth. And they love it because it doesn't look or feel like a dental practice.
No, it doesn't
And
at all.
it's so calming and relaxing. And you think about all of that, the smell, the color scheme, what I would suggest is when you're designing a practice and building companies, equipment companies are throwing different schemes at you, is imagine you're a patient sat there yourself. What are you looking at? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? And how would you want to feel? And then design it around that.
And who did that sort of, because I love the look of your practice. Was that you, or was that them, or was it someone?
No. So we actually used a local interior design company, and they were phenomenal. So I went to them with loads of ideas. They basically came back to me and said, Bobby, you're not in Dubai. Patients are not going to come to your practice if you build it here. So they were like, let's tone it down. So I was like, okay. And one of the best things about using a local interior design company was they do so much work in this local area. They know what the people in that area look like.
That's great.
And what you'll see sometimes with dental companies is that you see a lot of the same things.
I think that's the problem, is that they all look a bit like McDonald's. I don't mean as in they've got, but they have that sort of. You could walk into one practice and it looks so similar to something else, and it's probably called Smiley Plan or something. Yeah, I think that's great, brilliant, and probably cheaper than your Dubai version.
Yeah, definitely was.
Hang on, I've got one more question coming in. This is from Bala. Do you have any open days, and would you suggest these?
Yes, open days are a great way to boost your turnover, and there's a whole system around that. We actually haven't utilized them too much, to be fair. We've only had a couple, and they've been successful, but they're definitely something that you should do, but you don't want to do them too regularly because they can kind of lose the essence. So I know another squat practice a good friend of mine, and they do them very, very successfully. They can generate up to about 100 grams worth of treatment, for one open day. But it all comes down to targeted marketing and what your offer is.
I think that that's got to come. People must get that from what you're saying. Is you've got to start with what you actually want to deliver, what you want to do, and then effectively make sure that you're in the right place to attract the right patient, rather than attract the wrong patient who isn't what you want.
And what I would suggest is that you spend a good 3 to 6 months actually understanding your business and building your team before you start introducing open days, because open days take a lot of work. They take a lot of involvement from your team, and it's a real system and a process, and everything's got to be very slick. So you don't want to do that straight away while you've got a team who aren't fully,
that makes sense. It must be a bit like changing the wheels on a Formula One car. You need to make sure you work together. Got 2 more questions, and I think we'll leave it at that. So the first one is, hi Bobby, thank you for the presentation. This is from Blarina. How do you find the right location? Do you engage an agent?
Yeah, so I would pinpoint your location on maps. So work out a radius of where you want to be and why. And then I would connect with all of the commercial agents in that area, tell them who you are, tell them what you're looking for, what size, what premises, roughly when you want to be in that property. That's a great place to start. You can use just online agencies, Rightmove, Zoopla, commercial ones, to see what's already out there. And then there are some other people who offer a location finding service. So I do know somebody who does that for squat practices, where, for a set fee, they will do all of that for you. So they will go find your locations, they'll go and view them, and they'll propose them to you, and then you can go and view the ones that are suitable, etc. If you don't have the time to do that. So it's quite it's a bit of a pitfall really, because a lot of dentists, when they start a squat journey, they want to find a location, but then they struggle to find the time to then go out and do all the viewings because they're stuck in surgery. But you have to make the time for it.
Cool. Okay, I've got 2 more questions, and I think then I will call time. One of them is a great question from Chi that says, and I can answer this one as well when you do. Do you earn more as a principal or an associate?
So I hands down have earned more money in the last year and a half than I've ever earned before, without a doubt.
There we go. There we go. That was a quick answer.
Yeah.
My answer would be depends.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking from experience, but yeah, it depends. Yeah, there are some associates who are, if there are some high grossing associates who are making 50, 60 grand a month, and if you like that, don't bother setting up a practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you said it right at the beginning, Simon Sinek. What's your why?
Yeah.
What is your why? And then this is the last question for the evening, Bobby, if you don't mind. Is freehold better than leasehold? And that is from Tahir. And he's also said, thank you very much for your presentation.
So for me personally, freehold is always better if it's financially feasible. The main reason being is that you own the property, you own another asset. The asset's going to go up, in value over the time that you own your practice. Historically, the UK market will show that, and you can leverage that at a later date if you want to. And then when you sell your practice, you can retain the property and rent it out. But if for financial reasons, it's a blocker to you starting a practice, then hands down, just take a leasehold, because getting your practice up and running will earn you enough money that then you can end up buying a second site or getting a freehold or whatever you want afterwards. So don't let it stop you, if you can't find a suitable freehold.
Brilliant. Well, that was it. I think fantastic, Bobby. That was really good. I think it was a whistle stop of setting up a practice, but so many brilliant takeaways in there and things for people to think about. And I think if anyone is interested in a squat, then contact Bobby. Go to his free course in Birmingham, or I'm sure he'd be quite happy to have a phone call with you, because Bobby I've known for a while, and basically he's demystifying the fear. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, isn't it? I'm sure it is, but this is a man who's turning over, what was it, 500,000, did you say, out of one check? Yeah. So it's doable. He shows that it can be done. So if you have even the remotest hint that you might want to have a thought about it, then by all means contact Bobby. He gave you his contact details. We'll be sending out the recording for to all of you who've been listening, so that's great anyway. And I think all I've got to say, Bobby, is thank you so much for your time on this Thursday evening. That's been brilliant. I found it fascinating. Looking forward to seeing you, no doubt, at another dental show somewhere.
I'm sure we will.
I hope you enjoyed it as well, and thank you.
No, it was great. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everybody for taking your evening out to listen.
Brilliant. Cheers, guys. I'm going to end the. Oh, hang on. There's one question. Let's just see. Oh, there we go. That was Chi saying thank you for a great presentation, and I think everybody agrees. Thanks, Bobby. Take care, and thank you everyone for listening. Have a good evening.